welcome back. We're going to go over Chapter 15 for your GMAW competencies. Chapter 15 is all about AWS testing. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through an actual bend test, go through some of the criteria that is involved. For AWS testing, you're also going to have your entry level 1 fabrication project to do. I'm not going to get into that. That's more of just cutting parts and following a print and tacking it up. What I do want to get into is the bend test. Now there's a couple different ways we can set that bend test up, depending on what process you're welding. And we have a couple different thicknesses of metal. You can do a 3/8 bend test. What does that mean? Your material is 3/8 of an inch thick, or you can actually do a 1 inch too. What's the difference? 3/8 bend test qualifies you from 1/8 to 3/4 of an inch. So that means that you're limited on the thickness of material that you can actually weld. These are the actual certifications that we get into in each welding process. 1 inch, basically it's 1/8 to unlimited thickness. So it is up to you if you want to get certified in this course or any other certification in your stick welding, TIG, flux core, whatever it may be. Right now we're concentrating on GMAW, but it is up to you if you want to do 3/8 or 1 inch. I would highly suggest doing a 3/8 bend test first, pass that one, and then if you want to do the 1 inch to move on to the 1 inch. One other thing to kind of think about, so choose the type of thickness of the material you want to do your bend test in, and also what position. So for this course, we're talking about the short circuit, GMAW/S, short circuit process. For the course, you have to do a 3G. 3G is your vertical up. Vertical up. That's what we highly qualify. Now, if you want to be certified, so if you get certified in 3G, it also certifies you for your 1G and 2G positions. If you want to be certified in all positions, you would have to do a 4G overhead. So that would certify you for all 4 positions: the flat, the horizontal, vertical, and overhead. For short arc, for this course, so you will be doing it in the 3G position, which is a vertical up. Like I said, it's up to you if you want to go and do the 4G. That'll certify you for all positions and what type of thickness. For spray, we are going to be doing it in for just GMAW spray. We are going to be doing it in the 2G position. And that'll certify you for the 1G. Why are we doing it in 2G? Because spray is not typically done in the vertical positions or the overhead. So typically when you get into industry, everything that they're going to be doing is going to be flat and horizontal. So we're going to be doing our bend test for spray in the 2G position. Kind of a reminder, we'll kind of go through the positions quickly so you kind of have an idea of what you're getting into. 1G. Erase this and I'll draw some pictures on here so you understand the positions. 1G, that is in the flat position. 2G, horizontal. 3G is your vertical. 4G, overhead. All right, now we kind of got where you want to go with your bend test. I'm going to start getting into what we're going to actually do. Typically, for the 3/8 and 1 inch, the materials are already pre-cut. We're going to be doing a single V. For your short arc, typically this little gap here between the two metals, that's called your root opening. We're anywhere from about a 1/16th to an 1/8 root opening. Also, this little flat spot right here, that is called your root face. Some of the old timers call it a land. You're allowed typically up to an 1/8 inch root face. So typically when you cut these on the saw, you look down, they're like two knife edges coming down. It's going to be very hard not to melt through. So what we do, we go over the belt sander, we sand them down so there's a little flat spot like that on the pieces. We're going to be using a 60-degree angle. So that means each piece is beveled at a 30-degree angle. So this is kind of prepping up your material, so if you have to actually go cut these pieces, excuse me, you can do this yourself. Now, also, when you cut these pieces, there's going to be middle scale or rust if they're sitting on the shelf or if they've been outside. Typically what you want to do, about 1 inch on each side, go through, sand all that middle scale off. So as I'm going to draw this from a top view. Here's my two pieces. Here's my root opening between the two pieces. Here's my bevel. So this area right in here, where your bevel ends, you want to sand all that up to at least 1 inch, both sides. So when you actually go over the groove a little bit as you're welding on bare metal. Make sure you clean that up. So for GMAW short arc, we are doing a single V groove in the vertical up position. So that means you're going to take that plate, flip it up, weave it up, or however you want to weld it, that's up to you. 60-degree angle, anywhere from a 1/16th to an 1/8 inch root opening, about anywhere from a 1/16th to an 1/8 inch root face. That's kind of prepping the metal, getting it ready. Typically how I actually do that, I'll take this piece and I'll flip it over for tacking it up. I'll get a nice flat piece of material. I'll lay this surface down and I'll put 2 tacks right on the very ends. Then I'll flip it over, weld it. As you're welding this V groove, it's very critical that you clean between passes. Very critical. If you need help with this too, make sure you contact your instructor. So what do I mean? So I put my first pass in here, got a little melt through. I'm going to take a wire wheel or a grinder if there's bumps and stuff, clean that pass out, put my next pass in, clean it, put my next pass in, clean it, clean. So after each pass, I'm cleaning it very thoroughly. Now, as you're putting in your passes or before you even start welding, if the material is outside, especially during winter, that the temperature of that base metal should be at least 50 degrees before you actually start welding. Make sure it has a minimum of 50 degrees before you weld. So if you take a piece, let's say in January, you grab a piece out of the garage, you go over to the saw, you started cutting it, make sure you're at least 50 degrees before you weld it. That has a lot of characteristics of getting very brittle because it's actually cold metal when you actually start welding it. And your inner pass temperatures are very critical too. A lot of times you just don't want to keep welding. If you're doing a piece of 1 inch and you're doing it and you got to put 15, 16 welds on it or whatever it may be, make sure you just don't keep welding. You don't want to make sure that your inner pass temperature does not increase over 350 degrees. So what does that mean? Do a pass, let it cool a little bit, do another pass, let it cool a little bit. You just don't want to weld that thing solid, because what you're doing is you're adding a lot of heat into that base metal, and you'll burn out a lot of the properties of the metals. So, after you're done, keep in mind some of the criteria for the inspection. Number one, as you're welding, you're only allowed to go 1/8 inch over that root opening. Or not root opening, excuse me, the top of that bevel. So keep in mind, as you're passing over it, you're only allowed to go about 1/8 inch over that groove opening. So when you're done, if it's really wide, so for example, you might not pass the visual inspection before we even go bend it. Now, typically what we do, here's my piece, I'm going to draw it like this. Here's my weld. I just welded those two pieces together. How we cut this apart. Now this would be for a 3/8 thickness plate. Here's my center of my piece. We go 1 inch each way to cut my strip. So we cut 2 strips out of that piece. These are the pieces that we want. And these are 1.5 inch thick. Wide, excuse me. So as I'm laying, I got my piece. Don't grind it. Don't do anything. Go over to the saw. Find center. Go 1 inch each way. And then we cut 1.5 inch strip out. And these are the pieces that we're going to be using. So as you're welding it, especially when you're stick welding, keep in mind these are the pieces that we're going to be testing. These 2 strips right here, so you do not want to stop and start in these areas. Once we actually cut the strips out, you might want to mark this face. This is the top of it. Put R on the bottom side because that's your root side, and we'll go from there. When we get to that point, you want to contact your instructor and make sure all the pieces are labeled. We'll sand them down. We'll bend one face and one root bend. So that means we're going to be bending these in opposite directions. Okay, that is for GMAW short arc. That's what we're going to be doing. Now this is a piece of 3/8. Remember that certifies you from 1/8 to 3/4 1.5 inch strips. If we do a piece of 1 inch, things are a little different. Everything's set up identical. Now the strips that we are going to be cutting out are going to be a little different. Here's my weld. So this is a piece of 1 inch. Same thing applies. Their center, 1 inch each way. But now we're only going to cut a piece of 3/8 strip out. So we go 1 inch, make a mark, 3/8 from that 1 inch, same here. These are called side bends. We're not going to do a face and root bend. These are called side bends. And same thing, as you're cutting out, you might want to label this side A, this side B. When you get to that point, contact your instructor. He'll show you how to sand them, polish them, and then we'll go bend them. It's a little bit different for a 1 inch because we're doing side bends, not a root face bend. Now, that's your short arc. A lot of your stick welding, your TIG, your flux core, That's all going to be that single D groove. Now when we do spray, we're actually doing this in the 2G position, horizontal. We're going to be doing what they call a single bevel. Same thing applies. Except your single bevel is going to be looking like this. Still, except this is going to be a 45-degree angle. You can do it on 3/8 or 1 inch, it does not matter. Same thing applies here for your root face, 16th and 1/8. Same as your root opening, 16th and 1/8. Weld that in here. Put your next pass maybe here, and then you might have 2 passes. However it may go. Everything still applies. You're only allowed to go up, like I said, an 1/8 inch over that opening of that. So we're doing a single bevel for the spray transfer. And that's going to be done in the 2G position. And then when we cut the pieces apart, same things apply. 3/8, you're cutting that 1.5 inch strip out, doing a face and a rut. 1 inch, you're doing the side bends. Now let's go over a little bit of criteria after they're bent. And we visually inspect them. Number 1, undercut. What I mean by undercut, so I fill this all the way in. I get out to these outer edges here. If I have a piece right here where it dips down, that is called undercut. We're only allowed up to a 30-second undercut. Anything over a 30-second, you already fail. This is some of the criteria that we're going to be using to visual inspect it before we cut it apart and bend it. So you're only allowed a 30-second undercut. What else? A lot of times you get porosity pockets in here. So after it's bent, we'll look at what kind of holes or porosity pockets we have in there. So when it's actually bent, you're going to be looking at it like this. Here's my weld right here. You're looking at that bent piece. You might have a little pocket here, there, whatever it may be. The size of that hole has to be 3/30 seconds or smaller. If it is bigger than 3/30 seconds, you fail. And you're allowed up to a total of 3/8 total. So we add all these up. So if I have 4 of them, they add up to more than 3/8, you fail. Keep in mind, none of them can be bigger than 3/30 seconds, porosity, and so on. Absolutely no cracks are allowed. You are allowed a linear crack right on the edges up to about a 1/4 inch. The no cracking comes into the visual inspection before we bend it. After it's bent, it's a little different. So, and actually, I made a mistake. These are 1/8 inch. Nothing can be bigger than an 1/8 inch. No hole bigger than an 1/8 inch. No linear crack right here on the sides, an 1/8 inch. Excuse me, not 3/30 seconds, an 1/8. So, all right. Hopefully, when you get into the AWS testing for GMAW, if you need help, number 1, contact your instructor. He'll help you set it up, show you how to maybe even weld one if you're struggling, go through the bending procedures. Hopefully this helps you out a little bit before you get into the lab. You understand what you're doing. Thank you.